when Christopher Reeve was talking about his role as Superman, right? Soul hero, we're talking about the superhero. He said what he focused on was not the superpowers that his character had, but the wisdom, knowing when to use it, when to use those superpowers. You know, knowing when to use them. And it's really important now to know what makes a soul hero. A soul hero, you know, if you think about Superman, he came from another planet, right? So he was naturally endowed with certain qualities and powers. Well, guess what? We've all come from somewhere else. We've all been brought to this planet from somewhere else. But the trick is we have to find our power. Then what makes us a hero is we choose to use it. We choose to use it. And it's the little powers that we have when we're small that we build that eventually begin to lead us to the powers that we're to use. Because if we all have the same power, wouldn't that be really off balance? But maybe yours is compassion and mine is love and someone else's strength and someone else's endurance. We have to perfect them all. But in a lifetime, we don't choose all of them. We usually choose one or two. So you can look at what's happened to you in your life and the things that you've chose, and you will see from there what you chose to be your soul power in this lifetime to perfect. You know, I talked to quite a few people who have really sad beginning stories that a parent died or left or they were adopted or whatever. And so there it is. So many of us are dealing with, or emotional abandonment, right? Some place where we felt that we were totally alone. Well, and we can look at that and say, wow, that's really sad. But if we look at it and say, yeah, but the prescription there is, if you had no one outside to make you feel safe, then you were forced to go inside. If you had no one else to help you feel lovable and worthy, you had to get it from yourself. And it's that getting it from yourself that makes it stick. Then we have to integrate it because it's really hard. It's really hard to look in the mirror and look in our eyes and say, you're enough, you can do this. You don't need anyone else. Does it help to have friends on the path, environment? Yes, that's why the soul is here. You know, we're a community to really support each other, to hold up the mirror and say, keep going, don't stop. But we were stunned last Sunday after we left here. It's all right, we get to chill a little bit usually, and so we had our 4-year-old granddaughter over, and we were making our popcorn. And we're just sitting. It's really fun, you know, to spend time with the grandkids and just do normal things and talk to them because it's always a learning experience.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
We were making her popcorn, right?
Yeah.
It's my #1 favorite thing.
Even our almost 2-year-old grandson learned how to say popcorn.
Popcorn.
So anyway, we're talking to her, and a couple nights before that she was singing, and we were really enjoying it. So, you know, Taylor, we really love when you sing. And she said to us, shocked us, she said, well, I'm not a good singer. We said, what makes you think that? Who tells you you're not a good singer? She said, my mind.
4 years old.
4 years old. And I began to think, you know, if I look at my own experience when I was a child, I used to like to write poetry. And my mother or somebody submitted it to the school newspaper, and I was maybe kindergarten or I didn't go to kindergarten, so first grade. And at the end of when they published it in the paper, which was supposed to be a great honor, right? They ran out of space, so they left off the last line. The poem didn't make sense. I was so humiliated, I never wrote another poem. Right? What was I, 5? I never wrote another poem after that. Now, think about it in your life. When we're so sensitive as children, at what point do we shut down part of our creativity? And then the question is for the yogi, if we shut down part of our creativity, where does that energy go? It can start being channeled in ways that are not healthy. And they can go self-destructive. You know, I remember also another thing. I was creative as a child, right? I loved to sing. We were Catholic. We had a choir. a little kids choir in our Catholic church. I love to sing in the choir. I was probably about 9 or 10 years old. One morning we were singing, the whole church was filled, right? And the mic was right in front of me, and I kicked it. And of course, this was in the 60s, and it went, wah! Now, the choir director, who I was scared to death of anyway, didn't say a word, but she did this. I never sang again. I never sang again until, well, I did a show in Vegas once where I was so afraid to sing that I ended up with I didn't get I could have gotten the lead, but I got the second lead because I was afraid to sing. But, right, where have you shut down? I mean, think about it, because we talked about this great, this Merkaba that we're in the center of, and then we're moving to the Lion's Gate, which we're going to have all the support for strength. If we're not a complete being, if we've got our energies skewed off, I channeled my energies then into, here's another thing that happened. Hey, you want to know my life story? Who's taking notes? You can write my book. I was in high school, bored to death of school, bored. I couldn't sit in another classroom, except there was one thing that would have gotten me into college. One, I wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to study it deeply. I was afraid at that point, because of everything that happened to me, I was afraid to stand up to my parents. Well, not stand up. They would have done anything for me. But I was afraid to say to my friends and family, I want to be an actress. I want to study. Why? What was I afraid of? Where did that come from? Have you ever been afraid to stand up for a dream? And you know what? The funny thing is, my parents would have done anything to help me fulfill it. Anything. Whether they had the money for me to go to college or not. That was in here. What's still in here? I ended up getting to acting a couple years later, sideways through dancing. So I ended up in Vegas. But, and so your fate will take you. That's the other thing. Your fate will take you where you're supposed to go, even if your fear stops you in one moment. So don't, to look back and say, oh, I wish I could have. Know that the universe has plenty of tricks up its methodical sleeve, and if you miss the first one, they've got the next one, like they did for me. It was really funny, because I was traveling in the show, and those of you know my sister Flossie, she and I were in this lounge show, right? We kind of got to dancing late in life, so we weren't, we were good jazz dancers, but we weren't ballet classically trained dancers. We got into it too late. Our bodies weren't trained for it. So she went off with another group. I went to Vegas and figured I could work there because I had this great resume, right? But I found out I was too short to really get the good gigs, and I wasn't classically trained to get the good gigs as a dancer. And I hate to say, oh, I was so mad about this. The only gig a short dancer could get was topless. And I said, no, thank you. I was like 18 years old. I said, I can't do that, because I could visualize my parents sitting in the audience, and it creeped me out. I just can't do this. So I got into acting. Someone actually said, well, why don't you try acting? So that's how I got to see the universe had these tricks. I said, okay, because I was ready to take a stand for it, because I got invited to do it. But, then there's the other point of the power. The power. Are we afraid to access our power? Because if we're being asked to do something, we have the power to do it. And those of you who are around, if you want to, a week from Friday in Mystic Voyage, we're going to talk about the power. Because I've been looking, if you look at people who had a lot of energy and really had the mission to make changes, like say John F. Kennedy, right? He was a powerful man who had the good of many in his mind and his consciousness, but he had an undisciplined personal life. Now he's not alone, right? At the time, that wasn't so known. But many of our powerful people have undisciplined personal lives. Why? It's energy. It's energy that has not been channeled. How do you channel that energy to let it all go so that you can be, someone who does enormous good? How can you get all your, so we're going to look at that a week from Friday, but that's part of being a soul hero, is taking what you have, standing for your unique talents and treasures that you've been given, like a Superman put on this planet. It's, no matter, the other great thing about the metaphor of Superman is he couldn't tell anyone else about his gifts, not even the people that he loved the most, except for his parents. The person he loved the most he had to hide from. And sometimes that happens. We feel like we have to hide, like I did. But the time, what's going to happen now is we're all going to be pushed out of the shadows. Are you ready? Yeah. Right? And we say this a lot, but it's another time to remember. The curriculum has to say, okay, how do I become a hero? How do I become a hero? If I'm to be a soul hero in my own life, access my power and move forward, how do I do that? Look what's in your life. Look what happens to you in your life, including your mistakes, including the time you fell off the wagon or whatever. And Kai, can I tell you a story? Okay, here's a soul hero for you. Kai had one child. She was a single mom. She had a child, a male, and he played football. And he was in high school. And he was an excellent football player, and one Saturday he got a concussion, except they didn't really realize it. They knew he had an injury. So they took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, you really he shouldn't play. And, but, they didn't quite know what was wrong, right? Or did?
They actually said since he didn't pass out, he could play.
Since he didn't pass out, he could play. Now, this was a very competitive team and a competitive coach. So the coach made the decision, even though he had a severe injury, the coach decided that he was going to play. Well, he didn't live through the game. He got another head injury and died. Now, Kai had to deal with this, right? Can you imagine? Would you be angry at the coach? Would you be angry at yourself? Would you be angry with the community? Would life just seem really unfair, especially if you don't have tools? Would the pain be so amazing that you wouldn't know what to do with it and it would consume you? And you would do anything to numb that pain, right? And she did. And it took her quite a few years to get a grip on it. So she's 4 years clean and sober now. But that's a soul hero, because I would trust Kai with anything. She's the go-to girl. She's our hero because she went through what she went through. And that's not the way she went through it. It's not how long it took her to get through the other side. It's who she became because of it. And she really is a hero around here. We've been pulling her in the center. It's hard for her to do that because there's a little bit of her is ashamed because she felt she took a side road. We call it experience. Now she's a major, serious teacher. Have you had something in your life? Have you had a tragedy in your life, a real tragedy, where it called you forward to be a soul hero? And do you carry shame around that? Because if you do, that's the first place you want to heal. For me it was something as ridiculous as the shame of being misunderstood through my little kindergarten or first grade poem. For somebody else, it might be the shame of what they did because they felt abandoned, or they felt that they were wronged, or they were so angry and there was nothing they could do about it but numb the anger. Come on, pull forward your soul hero, because if you go through in this strength, you're going to help dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands. Your story doesn't have to be told in the movies. Your story is told every time you show up and we see the depth in your eyes and we get our strength from your strength. Don't hide, soul heroes, each one of you. Whether you have a little flimsy story like mine or a huge story. Step forward and live it. Be the soul hero. Because you will not recognize your consciousness by the end of this summer, I promise you. All of those planets that are surrounding you are going to empower you. And the holy ones are going to come forward and they're going to say, way to go, it's time. And last thing, the way, if you want to know how the other way, besides a curriculum in your life, to gather power, it's with all your words, your thoughts, and your acts. Each one of those things either creates or dissipates your power. Your thoughts, your words, your actions. That's where we accrue light, and integrating that light into our consciousness and auric field is where we become that power. I'm a soul hero.
So
Soul
hero,
hero.
loving everything
All
all
the
the time.
time. Oh, love everything all the time, no matter what
So
happens.
hero.
Here you go. It's yours.
It's interesting, because we have, 7 days a week we're open here, and we always have been here for just to love and accept you all, and love and accept ourselves, and to hold a space that we can wake up in a shorter rather than a longer period of time, wake up to our greatness, to our soul power, right? And really, and sometimes it's just awe-inspiring to watch how the source works through open channels. And we're not saying we're it or anything, we're just saying we're open for it. But to see the synchronicity of you guys walking in when you walk in, when you come in and life has just battered you down, or you walk in and you're just full of enthusiasm because you know it's your time to really wake up more. Whatever is the case, it's just like always inexplainably perfect. And even Trish mentioned in that next Friday night,
A week from Friday.
week from Friday, in Mystic Voyage, you can talk about power. Talk about this kind of power. Well, my so-called Gita night, which is Monday night now, called Waves of Wisdom, and we throw in a little immersion in love so we have fun with the wisdom of the Gita, it's going to be about awakening divine will, power, tomorrow night. And I just love it because, when you're dialed in, you're going to hear through people, you're going to see in the news, you're going to have experiences happen to you that just really reinforce that intuition you might having, or that inspiration. And when you're dialed out, when you're not dialed in, then everything seems to conspire against you, right? It seems to make your life really darn hard. It might even take a son or a daughter away from you. It might even break your heart, and then on top of that, break your dreams to boot. And Trisha's explaining how that is how you and I become soul heroes. I talked to a woman yesterday in Trisha's Crystal Temple, and we got really, really clear how it was her time to step into herself and to make her spiritual focus like a spiritual rehab program, because she's been in lots of rehabs, but I said we all are. In fact, it's really healthy to be in the ultimate spiritual rehab, which is spiritual healing of the ignorance of our separation from the power and our separation from the love. And we got so fired up, because I have a tendency to help spark other people. I got her so sparked up, and she said, I said, then you live here at the Soul. And we talked about other things, and she said, okay, I'll be there tomorrow at the Soul Talk. I don't see her in the group, and I'm not saying that she's not here. She may be, whatever. I'm not even going there. But I'll tell you one thing, because Trish talked about some shame. I'll tell you where the worst shame comes from. It's when we do have a little moment of soul heroism, or we have a moment of, God, this has been hanging around me for so long. I've had it, and you kind of get into your bottom line. You're getting to that place where you say, I am going to do something about this. I'm actually going to use my willpower, which is revocable never. It is the most powerful endowment we have as divine beings, is that will to conquer, that divine will to get us out of any situation we have created for ourselves and into our divinity. But the shame is this, folks. When we have that moment, we say we're going to do something and we don't. Because I've read in the Bhagavad Gita that these negative habits, and they're many, but not as many as your good habits. I like to call them good hobbits. Good habits. Hobbits were like good people. And I like in that movie that they were the good habits, even though they were timid and shy at first, and they were kind of like afraid of everything, right? They just wanted to be comfortable, but they're your good habits. But your good habits are much stronger. There are so many soul soldiers, we can call them, from past lives, where you had moments of heroism, where you reinforced your soul. You reinforce the good in the world. You put off something that was horrendously calling you to do something negative and wrong, and you diverted it, you rechanneled it, you alchemized it, things like that. There's so many more of those than our so-called bad habits, right? And do you know, though, that the bad habits are so ugly, they're so dark, that if we do not follow up on our word, they mock you. They mock you. We don't see that. I read all this stuff in the Gita, right? Which is the classic battle between being a soul hero and an ego that's really afraid and closed up shop and shut the doors on herself and her shining light and all of her divine qualities and things that she could express if she wanted to in this lifetime, or he.
That would be a heroes.
A hero.
Instead of a hero.
Heroes and heroes.
A heroes.
Anyway, they mock you, so it makes it even more difficult, right? Remember Cassius Clay, the boxer, then he converted to Muslim and he became Muhammad Ali, and he got real humble and just a spiritual guy. But in the beginning, he was powerful because he had an ego and he used it to believe in his power. And he would say, I am the greatest. He said, I am so fast that I get in bed, I turn off the light and I'm in bed before the light goes off. I am the greatest. I am fast, right? He was on an airplane once, still in the Cassius Clay personality, and the airline stewardess came by and said, please buckle up. And he said, Superman doesn't need to buckle up. And she looked at him and said, Superman doesn't need airplane either. So he buckled up, he buckled up. I'll tell you, it's better to be a big old ego, though, and even following something that isn't going to really bring you any happiness, than to be lazy, than to be indifferent, than to just be like, I don't know. I can't make up my mind about anything. So it's much better to just make a stand around something. Eventually, through that experience, because there is no wrong, through that experience, we begin to wake up. But at least you've got your will going. At least you're churning your will, okay? So I mentioned The Hobbit, and I'd happened to rent the new one out called The Hobbit. The Lord of the Rings was already done by that guy, Peter Jackson. Now he did The Hobbit. And I was just amazed, because I loved those books when I read them back in the 60s and 70s. I just loved them because there was such a metaphor, right? I mean, the good and the dark. Between, are you going to step into your power and follow the Gandalf of your higher self and be in danger and you could lose your life, but the adventure itself would totally change your consciousness? Or are you going to stay in the Shire in your little comfortable place and have your 5 meals a day, because they love 5 meals a day, not 3, but 5 meals a day, and not care about what is outside the Shire? So if you happen to mention the movie last week, I think 42 or the week before, The Hobbit, the new iteration of The Hobbit by Peter Jackson, that first 30 minutes says the whole Bhagavad Gita. Because he's about ready to write his memoirs of what happened to him, because he did choose to go on a journey, but not initially. And Gandalf came to his door one day.
What was his name, the character?
Is Bilbo Baggins. Bilbo Baggins.
That's a good name, Bilbo.
Bilbo Baggins. One day the wizard knocked on his door, out of the blue. I mean, I know who's knocking at your door. Out of the blue, so out of the blue we don't even hear the knocking. And that's your higher self. Gandalf represents your higher self. And Bilbo answered and thought that this wizard would at least do fireworks for the community, because he could make fireworks happen, everyone have a little party. But Gandalf knew of this Hobbit's history. He knew that the Hobbit's great-grandfather or something did a great deed. It saved something. It was bigger than just being a hobbit living in that little comfortable community. He did something that was in service of the light, and it removed some darkness from the world. So he showed up to say, Bilbo, you have the same potential inside of you. I have an idea. Would you like to go on an adventure? And Bilbo saying, I don't think so. I'm really happy here. And Gandalf couldn't convince him. So he kind of shoved Gandalf out of his little hobbit front door, and Gandalf put a mark on the front door. Bilbo didn't know about it. So the next night, Bilbo's sitting down at the table by himself, comfortable, prepared, they're great cooks, hobbits are great cooks, prepared this amazing fish dinner, and he was putting on his little garnishes there, and he's just got his little apron tucked in, and he's ready to go, ding, 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 ding. And he goes, oh, this is a bad time. Someone coming to bother me when I'm getting ready to eat. And he went and opened the door, and this was really this disheveled, unruly, kind of gross, kind of a warrior kind of guy comes in. Well, it's not all of them were dwarfs. Some were dwarfs, and one of the first one may have been or may not have been. But anyway, the guy just pushed himself in and says, "My dinner ready." And Bilbo's going, "Wait a minute, what? Who are you?" And the guy just pushed his way in and ate Bilbo's dinner. And Bilbo's just like his whole life was turning upside down right there. Then ding, ding, dang, another disheveled character, a dwarf, whatever. And then eventually 12 of them came in that night. And they just took his house and made a mess of it, spilled beer and wine all over the place until his whole paradigm of life was rattling to the cage. Then Gandalf came. Gandalf had called all these because these were warriors who were dealing with a serious situation. It wasn't the Dark Lord yet. It was the dragon had taken over the Lonely Mountains, the dwarf's place anyway. And they needed a burglar, a little hobbit that didn't smell like a dwarf to sneak into the Lonely Mountain and do something to help extricate the dragon out. And they picked, Gandalf had picked, the higher self had picked you and me, and everybody that is in a human body has picked you and me, the higher self, to be that one little hobbit that's going to say yes to the higher self and go on an adventure. So in that first 30 minutes, check it out. Bilbo's no, 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 no. Then he's thinking, God, Gandalf, is it going to be safe? No. Will you guarantee that I will live? No. Everything he asked Gandalf was like your worst nightmare, right? It was not going to be guaranteed, this adventure. But he did guarantee something, Gandalf did, to the Hobbit. And if you go on this adventure and are still alive to return, you will never be the same again. So whether it's the Star of David thing, there's always something going on in the stars. And if you want to know more about the stars, again, come to my Gita tomorrow night on Monday night. You know why? Because you know what I just read? Why do I study Gita? Because it blows my mind the truth. Maybe because I'm open to it, and I'm willing to receive it rather than shutting the door and not even opening up a sacred scripture, whether it's Gita or something else. But you know what it says about the stars and horoscopes? Because we think, wow, I got some negative, coming at me these days. My stars are not too friendly towards me. You know what I found out? And you can find out too, is that the stars are contingent upon whether I am in tune with myself or not. Whether I am tuned and at least respectful of the divinity in my chakras or not. Because if I'm in tune with myself, the stars are going to be very favorable to me because they get their whole juice from, as Trisha said, my thoughts, my feelings, choices, and actions. That's what creates your horoscope. And there's something else that happens when you have a choice or you guys have a feeling or you go about your day-to-day thinking, I'm kind of isolated. I'm just doing my little thing in the Shire of Encinitas Village, right? Everything is interreacting with everything else in this universe. Are you interreacting? Your thoughts are interacting with me. My thoughts are interacting with you. And so it is with everyone. We are so tied, knitted together. It's unbelievable. So I think the first thing to do about this journey is to say yes, figure out what's going to happen next. Because as Gandalf said to Bilbo, he said, look, you got all these, you got your mother's plates that were handed down by her mother, and you look at them every day and you make sure they're clean. You got her doilies. He said, for heaven's sakes, Bilbo, is that going to be the rest of your life? Is the way that each of us are living our life today, is that it? Is that? Because your future is today. Your future is what you're feeling in your heart today. Today absolutely is the most important day of the rest of your forever. It's insane. And even last Sunday we had a nice talk, but you know what? It's a dream, isn't it? Isn't your past and your childhood, because we talked about that, and you going to school, and those things that are invitations for you to be a soul heroine or a soul hero, aren't those just like, it's a dream, it's gone. And today, right now, a dream, it's gone. This isn't the reality in this realm of duality. This is not it. So how else can you and I wake up unless we kind of make a big oh yes, say a big oh yes, and get off of our you-know-whats and step into the unknown? And I don't know what that's going to look like for you. I only know what it's going to look like to me. And I motivate myself like none other each day because I know I don't have tomorrow. And you know what? I got out of fear yesterday. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to be in fear today, but I got out because of the grace that comes when you're really fired up and you're ready to say yes to higher self and do and go whatever, even if it means death to your habits, even if it means your life is going to change. Isn't it all service to God, though? Isn't it? Don't you, when you have a good day and you can really have a good sleep and you put your head on the pillow, isn't it the day that you gave everything to that day? And you were victorious in the sight of the light and the higher self and following. Isn't those the best days when you can actually have a day or an afternoon where you have been really a hero to yourself? In other words, you've listened to a guidance, a hunch, something that inspired your heart, and you acted on it. You didn't think about it and say, that's nice, and then forget about it. You acted on it. Then when you went to sleep that night, you were at peace. And I thought, now there is how I can live out of fear. My life is not going to end when this body goes back to dust. It's just going to begin. Especially if I'm of service here and I love you as much as I can love you and love, like the Soul Hero song, right here, right now, I am loving this. I'm a soul hero loving everything all the time. Then I know that when I go to the cross to the other side, it's going to be a new adventure with new soul friends, maybe some old ones if you guys are going to go over around the same time as me, and we pick up our service. We pick up serving and loving on the other side. But you know what? The realms get better. The realms get higher. The adventure gets spectacular. And the light gets brighter. And everything just is so magnificent. Now I'm thinking, now that I can live without a fear if I hold that service mentality that I am here to serve the light and serve my soul and love your soul. So I'm not just dealing with my stuff. And then I'm going to collect your love and your soul I'm bringing in my heart. So then we can love even bigger. And we can maybe even start to love the interdimensional worlds together rather than figuring out, oh my God, my life's a mess. Oh my God, I have this going on in my life. I might make a little more money. I got this vacation plan. Maybe we can forget that for a little chunk of time and then combine our hearts and start loving and see if heaven doesn't open up because of it. Do you see our potential? So I want to end with this quote from Flower A. Newhouse. She's the founder of Quest Haven, which isn't far in these little hills. It's a hidden jewel, quite frankly, Quest Haven. You go out there and you walk around there. Nobody's walking around there. Just the people that live there and the people that love her teachings are
It's a
around
retreat
there.
center.
It's a retreat center in Escondido, 20 minutes from here. And the reason why the world doesn't walk around there, because the vibration is so high, it scares the living bejeebies out of their bad habits. That's what happens. So it's a jewel. But this is what she said. And this is something that is coming from our higher self, because she's just downloading her higher self. Here's how it reads. We are told in the Bible that the fruit of the Spirit is love. There are some cardinal qualities that reach up as far as our mental bodies, but some, like love, go into the very presence of the divine indweller, whose overshadowing keeps us alive in this dimension. That one called the monad is the Christian term for the higher self or the soul self. By some, or the Spirit of God by others, is like a radiant star. So let's just say your soul is like a radiant star. It has flashes of light going out in every direction, and wherever these flashes touch, you can be certain there is power sensed. So whenever you have a soulful moment, of reflection that you are divine. Divine is you. There is no separation. Flash. That interacts with every particle of creation and beyond. Instantaneously, simultaneously done. You're in the network and it's flashed out there. One of the greatest qualities is the continual and unbroken expression of spiritual love. One of its greatest qualities is the continual and unbroken expression of spiritual love. Because if we have that and our poem gets criticized, we will still write poetry. If we're expressing, practicing, doing everything in our soul power, taking the adventure and learning how to express our soul love, we have a heartbreak, our dreams are broken, we will continue to get up and soul love. I think, this is Flower saying, I think that a person who enters God's kingdom, who has never done anything spectacular, like a little hobbit, never thought that they would ever, and even when they did something spectacular, they didn't think it was spectacular. We've never done anything spectacular, yet who believes in God and who has lived love to the highest degree or level that he or she understands, that person will be greeted with such fervor and gladness when he or she returns home to the Father's house. Finally, when persons come back to the inner worlds, I have heard kindle archangels, those are very high archangels, ask, how much have you loved? How many were taken into your heart? How many? Soul hero is out, winning the battles within, finding soul friendships and bringing those loves, hearts into her own big heart, cosmic heart. So it is.